So I don't watch a lot of other streamers. I have a family. I work 70, 80 hours a week. I watch some content when I can. I watch a lot of chess streams and stuff like that. But I do sometimes watch other political streamers on the left or the right. But most of the time, I'm unfamiliar. And so a lot of the people I interact with, I'm just getting to know, and maybe a lot of you in the audience know better than me. And a lot of times you'll hear things like, oh, they said this in the past, they said this. And it might well be true, but I try to only judge people based on what I specifically hear them say. One of the people that I actually enjoyed talking with because I thought they were a good debater was a streamer by the name of Destiny. And I've debated Destiny several times, both one-on-one, on his channel, on panels, and things like that. And I think that I always purport myself very well, but it's usually discussions that I like because I don't want to talk to people that, are just going to yell and scream and make insane accusations, or people that really don't have, a good ability to speak in public and things like that. I'll talk to anyone, I will. But it's nice to talk to people that are, they do kind of what I'm doing. They're streamers, they like talking about issues, and they're competent at doing so. And so that's one of the reasons I like talking to Destiny in the past. And when it comes to left-wing positions, a lot of his positions I find less radical, even though I dislike most of his positions, I find less radical than a lot of the other streamers that I've dealt with. However, we've had some issues where, I made it to the front page of Reddit because Destiny clipped out of context a discussion we had on trans issues, and other things like that. And sometimes I'll hear, even though I'm not watching, someone will contact me and be like, did you see so-and-so's recent stream? They talked about you. Well, that was the case with a video that was put up by Destiny today, or maybe it was yesterday. And so I watched the video, and there was a small portion about me. So I thought that I would play that portion, and then I'll play it in its entirety, and then I will respond to what is said. So, let's do it. It's a good picture there to start, huh?
Or this has materialized a lot more for me too when I look at how what was it in relation to? Oh, when I argue with people like Noerr and conspiracy theorists, something that you have to listen to is people will assert conspiracies, but they'll only do it with discrete points of evidence that aren't actually evidence for a conspiracy. So here's an example, okay? Let's say that I want to say that Mrs. Johnson is poisoning students in the classroom. Normally, if you're looking for evidence of a conspiracy like that, let's say for a police investigation, we want to find some evidence that Mrs. Johnson has put poison into the food, put poison into some water, has infected their desks, right? That's normally what we're looking for. But that's not how people online will approach the story. Instead, what they're looking for is, was Mrs. Johnson ever in the classroom with students that got sick? Yeah? Well, that's point one. Number two, has Mrs. Johnson ever gotten in trouble in the past with the school for doing anything bad? Yeah, she did. Well, that's point two. Point three might be, has Mrs. Johnson ever been sick in the past? Yeah? I mean, boom. Now you're done. That's and now you actually got the story, and you can spread that, right? Mrs. Johnson is making students sick in school. First of all, 85% of people have already just read the headline and they're done for whatever dumb meme or story you're making. Then for the people that do read on, it's you can you can take a couple of descriptive facts or discrete facts and put them together, and then people are oh, well, Mrs. Johnson was in there. The students got sick. She's gotten in trouble at school before. She's gotten sick before with the same disease the kids had. She's poisoning students, right? It all flows very naturally. Rob, if you ever listen to Noerr, be careful because he's a very crafty guy. But if you ever listen to Noerr debate, he's really, really, really good at doing this. Where he'll take 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 little discrete facts, but he'll weave them all together into a tale. But the tale that he asserts, the conspiracy that he asserts, he actually has no evidence for. There's zero evidence for that. But he's got a lot of underlying descriptive facts that sometimes are true, or at least true enough, and then he spins the story to bring them all together, right?
All right, so that's the extent of what he talks about me, so you can see that it's not super lengthy or anything like that. So what to say about this? First, sort of a backhanded compliment, right? Says that I'm crafty and I'm really good at doing something, so thanks for that, Destiny. So let's talk about the term conspiracy theorist. So this is an attack that's used often. And one of the things I notice is there's so many people on the left. I interact with so many people and different platforms, and not just the people I interact with on debates or panels or things like that, but then also their audience that'll sometimes come onto my channel, or they'll talk to me on Twitter or things like that. And one of the things I notice is they'll take a bigger streamer like Destiny, and if Destiny makes a claim about me, they will just repeat that claim over and over, even when it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So I'll talk about something that's not really a outlandish conspiracy theory, and they'll just say, oh, you're a conspiracy theorist. Or they heard Destiny say I gish gallop, which means I say a lot of points really fast, which is ironic coming from Destiny, who he talks really fast. I'm faster, though, if I want to be. And they'll say I'm gish galloping, but then they'll make that accusation in ways that doesn't even make sense. Like, I'll read 2 sentences of a study, and they'll say, that's gish galloping, which has nothing to do with what that term supposedly means. So I get this accusation a lot that I'm a conspiracy theorist. And what this is it's a claim used to summarily dismiss huge swaths of argument, right? So ask ourselves, what is a conspiracy theorist? So I'm not really concerned what the dictionary definition would be that we understand, right? Someone who believes in conspiracies. Well, technically, if you think that a group of people got together to commit a crime, that's a conspiracy. So being a conspiracy theorist, believing that, people got together to rob a bank, that's a conspiracy theorist. So clearly, the dictionary definition isn't what we're looking at. We're looking at the way that this is usually applied. And the way that it's applied, the implication is that you believe some outlandish, far out there stuff, right? And what Destiny's saying is, what I'll do is I'll take little disparate pieces of information and then weave a story together to prove some outlandish, terrible thing that just couldn't be true. But the problem is this is overused, and people will use it in ways that is meant to silence people that are making arguments that they can't deal with. So let's look at some things that were conspiracy theories. Iraq didn't have weapons of mass destruction. Well, you were a conspiracy theorist if you believed that, because you believed that you were being lied to by a bunch of people in position of authority. Now you might say, okay, Rob, but that's an example from a long time ago. Pick one that you've talked about recently. Am I a conspiracy theorist for calling out the FISA abuse and the Russiagate situation? Now, all the facts are on my side, and when I talked about this in 2017, about what a scandal it would be to use unverified opposition research to spy on a presidential campaign, I was called a conspiracy theorist. Well, it turns out that was true. Now, what was the utility of trying to silence me and ignore what I was saying by claiming that it was just outlandish and it couldn't be true, only to find out that it was exactly true? Well, it was because not that people were worried that I was wrong. People call you a conspiracy theorist because they're worried that you're right. And they don't want to handle the argument. And so they say, I'm just not going to acknowledge it because it sounds outlandish, therefore you're a conspiracy theorist. And it's things like this, how we're able to ignore actual things that are occurring in this country, like the teaching of critical race theory, or the FISA abuses, or the fact that deaths were being hid at nursing homes. Now, Destiny calls me, in certain Democratic-controlled states, Destiny calls me a conspiracy theorist, and this is one of the first times that I heard me call it. We were discussing people like Governor Cuomo, whose disastrous nursing home policies, forcing nursing homes to accept COVID patients, led to tens of thousands of people dying. Cuomo did it in New York. Whitmer did it in Illinois. Governor Wolf did it in Pennsylvania. Murphy did it in New Jersey. And I was discussing how Cuomo was hiding how many people, fudging the numbers, so it didn't look like that many people had died in nursing homes, because he didn't want to get the blame for his disastrous policy leading to deaths. Now, unbeknownst to Destiny, I'd made that claim for months, but the particular day that I made that claim in front of Destiny, the New York Times had just released an article proving exactly what I said. But Destiny's response in going along with me being a conspiracy theorist was to say, what'd he do? Bury the bodies in the ocean? Again, implying that it was so outlandish that I could believe something like this happened. Only he was wrong. And then once he was wrong, did he say, oh shit, wow, maybe I shouldn't have been calling you a conspiracy theorist? No, he then proceeded to make excuses for why maybe Cuomo had a good reason to hide how many people died. That's the caliber of people's debating ability and their interest in getting to the truth that want to just call you a conspiracy theorist. Now, I would ask Destiny, what are the conspiracy theories that he thinks that I'm weaving stuff together and that it's not true? Give me an example. What is it? I have people tell me all the time, oh, you're a QAnon believer. Really? I challenge you to find a conservative that's pushed back more against QAnon than me. For over a year. Making fun of them for the trust the plan thing. Oh, Rob believes there weren't really conservatives that rioted January 6th. No, I don't. I called it out often on my channel. Oh, Rob's publicly said that Dominion voting machine switched votes. No, I didn't. Never once. I said I find it to be a completely reasonable position if someone on the left says, look, maybe there were things that looked odd in this election, but I don't see a smoking gun, and they're completely right to say that. Until they see a smoking gun, they're justified in saying that. So where is these outlandish conspiracy theories that he's saying? Was it the Russia collusion stuff? Was it the stuff on COVID? The only thing that I could think that was ever directly pointed, and I'm trying to steelman Destiny's argument as good as possible, is when he asked me why I thought these Democratic governors forced nursing homes to accept COVID patients. And I said either stupidity or corruption. Either they wanted to send people there knowing that there was a risk that they would die because they thought it benefited them and they were corrupt, or they were just that stupid. And he asked me what the chances were of each, and I said 50-50. And then he and the other leftists were like, oh, Rob's a conspiracy theory. He thinks that Democrats would intentionally send people somewhere knowing that they could possibly die. Is that an outlandish conspiracy theory? First, I didn't say it definitively happened. I left open the possibility. And the reason I left open that possibility was because the fact that we had supposed health experts in these Democrat-controlled states that came to the conclusion that we should send COVID patients indoors with the most vulnerable of people is something so stupid that it would probably be more comforting if it was corruption instead of stupidity. Because if these people running our health systems in these states are that dumb, we're in a lot of trouble. But secondly, Destiny himself believes things that are quite remarkably similar. So the implication is, how dare you assume that a politician, especially a Democratic politician, would do something to intentionally jeopardize people's health? How do you explain the fact that we still have Democrats that are calling for schools to not be in person? How do you explain the fact that we have Democrats calling for children to wear masks, even though the evidence suggests that it's more harmful for them? Let's take the first example. Former CDC Director Robert Redfield said publicly, in testimony, that more kids died as a result of not being in school and the lockdown than died of COVID. We can see that almost all of the evidence for well over a year has showed that children are less likely to get the disease, less likely to transmit the disease, and less likely to have serious complications from the disease. And yet still, knowing that it was jeopardizing their public health, Democrats pushed for them to not have in-person learning. But even beyond that, using an example where Destiny himself has believed something as such, I debated Destiny at one point, and towards the end of the debate, we were talking about the riots. Now, this was well before January 6th of 2020, or 2021. So this was during the George Floyd riots, and I believe this probably occurred sometime in June, and I think it was right after there was a riot in New York, where the police had to back down because we were told that they were overwhelmed. And I say at the end of this debate that it might, and this is very relevant as you'll see, I said, it might be the conspiratorial nature in me, but I felt that Democratic governors and mayors were intentionally allowing riots to go on because they thought that it would harm Donald Trump's chances of getting reelected. And Destiny said, of course they're doing that. And that's good if it keeps Trump out of office, because protesting and rioting are two sides of the same coin to democracy. So Destiny believed that Democrats were intentionally allowing riots to occur. Riots, by the way, that were, what do you think a riot's going to do? Predictably harm people's health. Maybe, predictably, some people will die eventually. Predictably, people will lose their livelihoods, lose their property. Predictably, people will be hurt. And yet he is saying that Democrats are intentionally allowing that because it benefits them politically. And yet, on the other hand, he smears me as a crazy conspiracy theorist. Not for definitively saying that these Democratic governors intentionally wanted people's health to be poor or intentionally wanted them to get COVID or to die, but for saying that it's a possibility. So you can see the hypocrisy in his statement. Just like the debate I just analyzed with Vosh on Syria. What these people want to do is believe any outlandish thing. How many of them believed? I don't follow Destiny very close. I'd like to see everything that he believed about Donald Trump. Did he believe the Russia situation? Did he believe in Russia collusion? That was a conspiracy theory. Did he call himself a conspiracy theorist? It turns out that conspiracy theory was false. And it was peddled for a reason. So that our intel agencies could spy on the sitting president of the United States. So when Destiny says, I'm very good at weaving these things together. Well, if I'm wrong, show me where I'm wrong. If you think something I believe is so outlandish that you could dismiss it as a conspiracy theory, give me the example. Now, maybe you're questioning, but is Destiny really suggesting that it's that big of a deal that people need to be silenced? Here's what Destiny said right before he started talking about me as a conspiracy theorist. About 2 minutes prior. You ready? From the same video.
Shit, I don't know what they're saying. I don't want to misrepresent any viewpoints, but is there one thing that connects all these people into going down the conspiracy shit? Yes, actually. It's going to Destiny, come on, they're on completely different levels in terms of wrong. If you want to moralize it, sure, but factually, no. And I mean, like, we've watched it happen over and over and over and over again. My mom was repeating some pieces of misinformation that left-leaning people spread. For instance, I remember my mom saying the police opened the gates to let the protesters into the Capitol. A lot of left-leaning people were retweeting that. We watched left-leaning people retweet the thing about the one cop saying Blue Lives Matter to the people. It never happened. We've seen like a whole bunch of misinformation being retweeted. We've seen people, everybody retweets misinformation. This isn't like a satisfying solution, but like the best thing that could happen for like the media environment right now is all forms of alternative media should be completely banned, and only like the mainstream publications can fight against each other doing it. But that's like really shitty because obviously there are other biases there. But I think that alternative media, I think it has already destroyed. That includes people like me, even like on Twitter, Twitch, on YouTube, whatever the fuck you want to call it. But I think that like alternative media has destroyed people's realities. It's completely shifted them into totally different realities.
Destiny's prescription to people being radicalized is the total elimination of alternative media. He would like to see a return to 6 corporations controlling massive flow of information. Now think of how those two positions juxtapose. He calls me a conspiracy theorist, and then he's talking about how dangerous, it's so bad that we should just deplatform everyone. Only let the establishment have a voice. And this is a left-winger. Sock Dem, he calls himself. Do you see the worldview and how it adds up? I don't want people... Where would we be? Would we have found out about the Russiagate stuff? Would we have found out about Cuomo hiding bodies? Would we have found out about these disastrous COVID policies? It's nonsensical. And it's a cheap trick in order to get out of arguing things that you're not competent on. Oh, I don't believe that could have happened. Therefore, you're a conspiracy theorist. So anytime Destiny wants to talk to me about why I'm such a dangerous conspiracy theorist, Surely he'll have no problem doing so. Surely he'll be able to articulate exactly why the things I say are so outlandish and I'm just weaving things together that aren't true. So I look forward to having that conversation. I'll be careful that he doesn't clip me out of context again so that he could get me on the front page of Reddit. But I guess if you can't actually handle the debate or the argument yourself, you have no choice but to make edits like that. So we'll see how it goes from here. But at the end of the day, when people call you conspiracy theorists and stuff like this, it's not an argument. Are there people that say outlandish conspiracies that I disagree with? Yes. But the accusation is leveled against people making reasonable arguments that are challenging official narratives or official stories. You could call people conspiracy theorists for all sorts of reasons. If you think the cops planted drugs on someone, oh, that's a conspiracy theory. So, I don't really take these, I had people ask me what I thought about it. I don't really take these things like, to me it was a backhanded compliment, to be honest. Because he's admitting that he knows that I'm good and persuasive. He just has to discredit me in some way because he doesn't know how to deal with that. So, all right. Well, hey, thanks for watching.